The process of testing controls is a three-step process. In the planning stage, we have four tasks. First, we need to understand controls. This will be achieved through inquiry, observation, documentation review. We're going to basically understand what the client's controls are. Then we will document that understanding. The assumption is if we haven't documented it, we didn't do it. Then we'll come up with a preliminary plan related to the assertions. And then we'll do an assessment of internal controls risk. And so remember, control risk is the likelihood that the controls will fail. So first we need to understand the controls are in place, document our understanding, map that understanding to the assertions, and then assess the control risk based on what we've seen. The next step is deciding whether it makes sense to test controls. If we intend to set control risk at maximum, then we would not test controls for a private company because we're not planning on relying on them. This is called a substantive strategy, in that we rely 100% on substantive testing to base our opinion. If we want to do a reliance strategy, then we're going to set control risk below maximum, and we're going to rely on the controls for some of our evidence. In order to rely on the controls, we're going to need to test them specifically. We would only test them if it's cost effective. Note, I didn't say low cost, I said cost effective, meaning I'm going to determine whether the cost of testing them is greater than the value of the evidence it generates. If there are alternative ways to generate the same level of assurance at a lower cost, we would do that for a private company. For a public company, we would still be required to do test of controls because we need to issue an opinion on the internal controls regardless of whether it makes economic sense. Now, when we actually do our test, we're going to have a four-step process. First, we're going to define what it means to say a control is effective or working. Another way we could define it is, what is a deficiency condition? What if, for example, if I want to make sure that reconciliations are done, deficiency would be the reconciliation report is not there. So it would be linked to the existence. I'll actually conduct my test, will be the second stage. The third stage will be, I'll compare the actual effectiveness with the necessary effectiveness. So in stage one, I defined the particular, what it would mean for a particular control to not be effective. But at some point, I have to evaluate the totality of the evidence. So if a control works 90% of the time, is that enough to say that it's effective? Does it have to be 95, 75? And that level we set will depend upon the nature of the control, the asset it's doing, the assertion, the level of assertions we need. There's going to be a number of factors that are going to weigh into that. And we're always going to end with documenting the results.